makes that phone call. He makes the phone call, and the first thing he said, and they're like, "You want to cancel a wish?" And he's like, "Nah." He's like, "Is there any way to just like change this a little bit? Like everything's fine."
Welcome back to The Physical Cut, where films live beyond the stream. I'm Carlos, and today we're talking about one of the biggest horror surprises of the year. That is Obsession. Some films are expected to be hits, others come out of nowhere and completely take over the conversation. And Obsession took over the conversation big time. And today we're going to be looking at audiences and why they can't stop talking about it. Joining me is John, better known as Spooky Season.
Yes,
John,
indeed.
welcome back to the show.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for inviting me back. I'm very excited to talk about Obsession and the other horror gems that we have this year.
It's been a year for horror, to be honest. It's been quite a year. Some flops, some sleeper hits, other questionable hits, but we're not getting into those on this episode. But I've been wanting to talk about Obsession for a while now. I was waiting for you to watch it because I wanted your opinion on that. I really want a big horror persona to tell me what I might be missing, if the audiences are right, if the critics are right. But why do you think people are talking about Obsession so much?
I think it's a multifaceted thing. I think, for one, I genuinely do believe that the movie is very well done. The way it's shot, the score of the film, the acting in the film, especially the Indy Navarrette, I believe her name is, her acting, and even the gentleman who plays Bear. I think everything altogether, including the fact that because it's such a small, like, indie film, I think there's like this push behind it to kind of be like, I think a lot of people are tired of the same old from Hollywood, and it's always like sequels or remakes or whatever. To have an original film come out and actually be very good, I think a lot of horror fans are almost like very hungry for that. So knowing that it was good, knowing that it was made by an indie director and an indie team, I think there was this huge push to get this movie to like keep going and strive for more and more, to be honest.
I feel like there's not a lot of people left in the world that do not know about Obsession, but sometimes I love going into, which I rarely do anymore, but I love reading their descriptions on the film. Obviously, this is a film by Cory Barker, so I guess a lot of young people know him from YouTube. And it's a small cast. You got Michael Johnston, whom is Bear, Indy Navarrette, who's Nikki. Then you got Cooper Tomlinson. I know Cooper before. I've seen him before. I can't pinpoint right now, but he was actually a pretty good one in the movie. And then you got as well Megan Lawless. It's a small cast of 4, and it's a very simple premise. After breaking the mysterious One Witch Willow to win his crush's heart, a hopeless romantic find himself getting exactly what he asked for, but soon discover that some desires come at a dark, sinister price. Very simple premise. I feel like these kind of premises have been done before. Have they worked? Not as good as this. Sometimes a simple premise could have a lot of holes. But at least for this film, because we've had other indie films this year like Undertone and Backrooms, but I feel like word of mouth has not been as hard for those as much as it was for this one. And word of mouth, do you think, like, right now, especially in a social media time that we live in, is word of mouth more valuable than a giant marketing campaign?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. One of the reasons that Obsession is doing or did do so well is that from the online perspective, there are so many memeable moments in that movie that it was like wildfire. Like, everybody's talking about Obsession. Everybody's making memes about, like, when she makes like the frowny face. Everybody's making memes about it and talking about it. So it's almost like if you didn't watch it or if you don't watch it, you're not part of like an inside joke that everybody knows about that you're kind of left out because you didn't see it. So I feel like that word of mouth and the idea of it being such a big thing online made it like pushed people to be like, I gotta watch this movie. Like I gotta see, why is everybody losing their minds over this movie? And it really did, I think, push it to be like, I mean, it made more money than the first weekend and the second weekend. Then it made more money again in the third weekend. And then like for a movie, what was it, $750,000 budget?
Yes.
I mean,
It's at
it was
400 now, 400
right.
million.
It's insane. It's insane how much money, but word of mouth and the meme ability of that movie is what I think really pushed it.
Yeah, I actually have. I told you I was going to be reading out some Reddits. I went on Reddit. Please, somebody get me out of there. But I did go on Reddit and I asked some Redditors, which I believe that's how they're called. And I asked them the question. I was like, is this film actually good? Obviously, you have the film buffs and the horror buffs that they always try to find something bad because we're stuck, at least for horror lovers. Some of them are more critical of this film than others, I guess, because we're not in the classic kind of monster, either Pennywise or Ghostface. We kind of have to wrap our heads around, there's no real monster here. When you mention memes and the inside joke, and especially having Navarrette's Indy's face become a meme. I got this comment from this Redditor. I'm not going to read these names because these names make no sense to me. She wrote, personally, I identify with Nikki very much, and seeing how she behaved while under the influence of the wish hit me really hard. Kind of sad face. I have acted in similar ways before because it felt like all I could do to keep things, sorry, the grammar is not the best here on Reddit. All I could do to keep things how they were, bad I know, I'm doing a lot better. So the whole movie felt like I was just watching myself, and it was more terrifying than anything else I've ever seen. So there's that, as creepy as that sound, there's that take that some people relate to this film, whether it's because they're younger Gen Zers and they live in social media, which this movie doesn't really have any social media in the film. These kids are talking to themselves the entire time. There's
Right.
not, oh, I'm posting something here. It's not like that movie Host, where you have people on cam the entire time or something like that. This is just kids talking to themselves. And I feel like when people compare Gen Zers to millennials and to other generations, they're like, oh yeah, they don't talk to each other in person. They're always on their phones. This movie, except when they're texting each other, there's not a lot of technology. So the fact that this generation, this new generation, is associating themselves or seeing themselves in these characters, I feel like that's probably part of the, I would say, the surprise of it being such a 2026 hit. I don't think it was a surprise that a lot of people expected. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do not think anybody estimated that the movie was going to do this good, including everybody who was involved with the movie. I'm sure they're probably completely shocked. I mean, they make this small indie horror film that, like I believe I heard in an interview, like Indy Navarrette said that, for a year and a half after they filmed the movie, she couldn't even get work or something like that. And it's like, so none of them thought this was going to happen, but I definitely feel as if the real world elements that are in the film is part of the appeal. Like you said, the one person on Reddit saying they kind of identified with Indy's character with Nikki, but also I do think there is probably a portion of guys who can relate partially to what Bear was going through in a way too, up into a certain point, because Bear, at first, he was okay, and then he started making really bad decisions. I do think that both sides can relate in a way, like, with guys, you could be going through like a time of like loneliness, so you kind of feel that feeling like you kind of connect with Bear on the level that he's probably alone, and he's living in, I believe, his grandmother's house after his grandmother
Yes.
passed away, so he's alone. He had his cat, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, his cat dies. And, he's going through that. But then, like you said, somebody connecting with how Nikki under the Wish was acting, where they might have like, I believe it's like an anxious attachment style in a relationship where they're like constantly begging they want it to make it work, but it's just not working.
Yeah, to piggyback on the spoilers, if you haven't seen this movie and you're listening to my little podcast here, sadly, we're gonna keep it. If we have to spoil to, we're gonna spoil it. You should have seen this movie at this point. It's gonna come out on 4K next week. It's already on streaming, but I really wanted to get this conversation because I've been wanting to get a lot of stuff off my chest. And with this film, I feel like we've gotten so much horror franchises, big budgets like Scream, that everybody knows my thoughts on those. And last time we spoke, I told you that when I went to see Scream, there were about 20 people, including myself, and I counted them. And that was on premiere night. I went to see Obsession. I believe we went to see it a month and a half after. And my theater was full. Like, my theater was packed. There a few empty seats, but for a movie that came out a month and a half, which movies don't even last that long anymore in theaters, to be honest. And this is in 42nd Street, New York. This movie was still playing, and it was still packed in the middle of the day on a Saturday. You had a lot of young people there. You can tell who's seen it before. I wasn't too scared about it, but the people next to me and around us, they were reacting to the film at every moment. And I feel like smaller horror films lately have consistently outperformed expectations because, again, you're giving us the same, Hollywood slop of franchises that are not even well done at this point. It's just like, well, this is going to sell, we're going to put it out there. And you're not even considering the audience anymore at this point. And I feel like horror fans, I don't know about other people because I'm only talking about myself. This is my podcast, this is my opinion and your opinion. And some other people might have different opinion than us, but I feel like some horror fans have actively been searching for something completely different, better storytelling. And I feel like as much as holes in the script this movie has, and backroom has, and undertone has, I feel like there's still a little bit, I would say, originality to it. And that's what people go for because my undertone was packed as well. It wasn't the best movie, but it was still pretty packed and it was a low budget movie as well. Do you think that horror audiences are better at discovering original films than fans of other genres?
I think, I don't know if I'd necessarily say that, but I would say I think horror fans are better at appreciating when something does come along and is original and is very well done. I think, like, the coolest thing about horror as a genre is, unlike other genres of movies, horror is notorious for being able to have like a shoestring budget like nothing. And you come out with one of the best films of your generation or of a certain time period. Like, you do not have to have a ton of money to make a good, effective horror movie. And because of that, I also think the horror genre is naturally geared towards a better possibility of having a more original, a more unique type of film. There are certain genres that just don't play well unless you have a bigger budget. But once you get into these bigger budgets, then you got studios involved and they're sticking their heads in what you're doing. I feel like that's also an issue with other genres versus the horror genre.
Yeah, I have another Redditor here who wrote, I mean, the budget was under 1 million. They did a phenomenal job with the budget. I do, however, and I love this guy's grammar, agree with you. It's really overhyped. Is a very well done movie, in my opinion. Knowing that these are all up and comers, he means the actors, makes me even more excited about it. But ultimately, it's not really that scary. When he said about, I agree with your opinion, was another Redditor who had commented, that the movie wasn't necessarily the best, but he did make some good points. I took that one necessarily because, like you said, this is a movie from $700,000 that is now making 400 and counting because this is the movie that I wanted to compare the possibility of this 4K coming out next week. And I'm not plugging the 4K. I'm just excited for the 4K because I want to see some scenes that people said don't look too good on 4K, but that just might be streaming because
Right.
streaming and a disc is not the same thing. But I feel like the sleeper hit that was K-pop Demon Hunters, I can only compare it to this when it comes to the disc because there's people who don't give a shit about physical media. They don't. They're like, "What's that?" And you can talk to some kids, and by kids I mean Gen Z or Alpha or Beta, whatever they call themselves. But my thing is like, you have some generation that is coming out. Gen Z is discovering physical media, thank God. But some other people that don't, because of this movie coming out, the same audiences, and this small tangent here, bother me when a Criterion bro, because there's difference between people who love movies and collect Criterions and some people who just gatekeep Criterion. One of them had commented, "Oh, so great, we're gonna have the soccer moms now buying Criterion because K-pop Demon Hunters is coming out." I don't give a fuck who buys physical
Right.
media. I just want people to buy physical media. And if a soccer mom is buying K-pop Demon Hunters and you're so afraid it's gonna sell out, then buy it, pre-order it, and
Right.
pre-order it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
If you're a fan, or if you're a believer in physical media and you wanted to succeed, you should want the soccer mom to buy. You should want
Yep.
every mother, soccer mom, basketball mom, baseball mom, every mom known to man. You should want to buy physical media because that's the only way you're going to keep it alive. Is if you start getting the I guess for lack
The
of a better,
suburbs.
like the normies, the people who just stream and they don't really think about it. If they start buying physical media again, we win. Period.
Yes.
There'll be no other choice but to continue making physical media.
Yeah, and the reason I brought Demon Hunters up is because I know that's gonna be a number one selling disc. I believe November, December comes. I'm pretty sure that next week you're gonna have these same kids at Barnes and Noble, at Night Owl in Brooklyn, probably buying this movie. And I'm not mad if it sells out because I know they're gonna keep making more of them. Same thing with Demon Hunters. If it sells out, guess what? Criterion is gonna make more. The only thing that I hope is that they make a beautiful box and not that crappy plastic that they do. Because I'm still
Yes.
mad about Eyes Wide Shut when every other cubic film has a nice digipack. Don't get me started. Anyway, point is, back to Obsession, that I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of different versions of this film. Steelbooks, 4Ks, Blu-rays, DVDs, VHSs.
Right.
We are going to buy them all. Us horror fans are going to buy them all. But the kid in Brooklyn who's going to NYU film school is probably going to buy the DVD and be happy with it.
Right.
Guess what? You still have more chances of buying a 4K. And you're probably going to buy a 4K later on, from Arrow or whoever takes over the licensing and makes another box set. You're still going to buy it. Why we know this? Because we know we follow each other. So it's like trying to, gatekeep 4K. But for me, it's like, I know this is going to be a well received physical media next week. I'm hoping it does well. Look, I could have my reservations on the film, but if people are buying it, if these people that usually don't buy physical media are buying it, that is great news for us. And maybe Sony will rethink their decision. Who knows? We don't influence that much. But moving on from the physical aspect of that and the money that movie has made, I feel like one of the reasons and one of the comments that I read goes with this. This to me is more of a psychological horror. It doesn't rely too much, although it has some jump scares for some people, for the normies, and it has some gore. Again, for the normies, it doesn't have a CGI monster like Smile or Backrooms that has that CGI monster.
Right.
This one is more just craftsmanship. Like, this is just all about atmosphere, uncertainty. You got
Yeah.
paranoia and the dread.
Yes.
Like,
It's
all over.
the movie does tension building and I guess I would say lighting very well. I mean, the scenes where like the whoever's idea it was, whether it was Cory Barker's or whether it was the cinematographers, whoever's idea it was to keep Nikki in the shadows a lot to where you can't even really distinguish her features per se, that was a amazing choice, because that's part of what made it effective, is that really weird uncanny feel of, like, especially when they did the prosthetics on her face, when they had her standing in the corner of the bedroom,
Oh, yes, yes.
like talking to Bear, they did prosthetics on her face so that way, like, when the subtle light touches her features, it you can tell it does not look like her.
Yeah.
And like when that's happening, that's like, to me, that was one of the most, I guess I don't want to say terrifying because it wasn't that intense, but that was one of the more scary aspects of the film where you're like looking, you're like, hold on, that is not her. Like, who is that? And she's like, you know, standing up, doing her thing. But the way they used lighting and all in this film is what made it effective. And also, I believe, you know, music always has a large impact. So the score, like when I'll be honest, when I watched the movie for the first time, I didn't 100% notice it. But then I actually went to the movie theaters, I saw it twice. When I watched it the second time, I really started to notice how well the score amplified what was going on in the scenes. Like the fact that when Nikki switches back and forth between her normal self and the One Wish Willow Nikki, the music like abruptly stops. Every time she switches back, it stops. Almost like an indication of when she's Nikki and when she's One Wish Willow Nikki. And stuff like that is what I think made it effective. For like, if you're into, like you said, psychological, or if you're into like more like tension building type of horror, that's going to really get you probably.
Two films that kind of stuck with me. I'm going to touch first on the lighting. I did like the lighting in the film. However, the reason I was bothered by the lighting, it wasn't because I did not like it, it's because the reception and the feedback from people, the Oscar campaign and the Indy, literally, no pun intended, Oscar campaign for Indy is that, oh, she's such a good actress. I don't want to get the hate for saying this. We already have an Academy Award winning performance in horror this year from Amy in Weapons. When Amy comes into the scene, even when she's just like popping in and out at the first half of the movie, which I was entirely bored, about to go walk out of that movie, then she comes in and that movie does a complete 180. Once Amy Madigan, Aunt Gladys, comes in and starts talking, that film takes a whole different vibe. Now, with Indy, yes, she's a great actress. But if you're telling me that she should win for acting, half of the features, half of the reason, or I would say 100% of the reason to win a Best Acting award is we can see your face. And that's the only problem that I had when people are like, oh, she should win an Academy Award for her acting. Which acting? I couldn't see her face. That's not a bad thing. I like one of the scenes where she's at the door when they first start staying together, that she comes over and you just see the eyes. And
Right.
it's like a wolf. You know, if you watch a lot of horror movies, you probably know what I'm talking about. And I'm talking to the audience, not you. Everything behind you is horror, so you know what I'm talking about. So you
Right.
know when in horror they have somebody who's possessed or just not themselves, and their eyes, they have like that light in their eyes, very Pennywise, you know, like
Right. Like
the deadlights, you know. So when you have those deadlights in your eyes, that I loved. But you can't tell me that all this hiding her features should get her an award when she's very good also when she's in the light. If it's a supporting actress role, great. I love Academy Awards, so when people started saying about nominations, I was like, I gotta go check this movie now from a perspective of if this gets nominated for an Oscar. So that's how I usually watch movies. Horror movies, not so much. But when I watch Weapons, I said, yeah, no, Amy should be nominated for this. I don't care about the rest of the film, but Amy Madigan, and from day one, even after watching one battle after another, which I loved, I said, no, Amy Madigan is the one that has to win all the awards this season. And I was right. But this movie, I feel like if you push her for supporting, you might have more chances, even though she's more of a lead, to be honest. But I feel like nobody in this movie is necessarily a lead. Maybe Bear, if you want to put it that way, because he made the wish, but the antagonism comes from Nikki, but then the antagonism comes from Bear, and usually the best supporter is the one who's antagonizing the situation. The lead is usually who's being affected by the situation. The lighting in this is so good. I feel like it could have used maybe a little bit more color in some scenes, but it was still pretty well done. The score, I noticed the first time I watched it, it was a pretty good score. I feel like it reflected a certain time, but not at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense. It felt very 90s because, again, there's not a lot of technology in the film. It felt very 90s, but then at the same time, it felt very today of this generation's horror. But one of the ones that I feel that for me still has, when it comes to horror, still has the edge when it comes to sound, has to be Undertone. Undertone has such an amazing sound. Obviously, it has to. It relies into just sound itself. I didn't mind the camera just rolling around the house and all of that because it kind of built the atmosphere. And if you watch a lot of horror, you're like, oh, something's gonna pop up sometime. At one point, something's gonna pop up, and then nothing does. But
Right.
then you don't do that when you're podcasting. You don't talk like that when you're podcasting. Like you're doing a live stream at this point because you have audiences typing, live, but that could have been taken more to the max because we've had horror that has great sound before. This is not new, but there's movies that rely a lot on sound, and when there's silences, you really feel that deafening silence. And I
Right.
feel like this one did not use it well, even though a lot of the silence throughout Undertone was still pretty well done, and a lot of the sound was still pretty well done. I feel like they could have gone way further with that film, giving us a little bit more visuals, I guess, because it kind of just get exhausting repeating the same thing over and over. With Obsession, I feel like everything just works, is very well packaged. And I mentioned about the antagonist in this film for you personally. Which person you think is the antagonist here, and why does the antagonist in this film stick with people?
I think the antagonist would probably be Bear. He's the one who made the wish. You know what I mean? So if anything, he is at fault for everything that occurs after he makes that wish, whether he intended for it to be that way or not. So I do think that like Nikki is the victim, even though she's doing things to Bear. She is the victim. I mean, the real Nikki is still trapped underneath, basically being forced to do all this. So I do think it's one of those things like, I can see if this was real, I could see like, at first maybe Bear didn't believe that it was like the wish really came true. You know what I mean? Because like, why would you think a random object granted your wish and all of a sudden she likes you or whatever? So I can see at first maybe Bear's just like, oh, okay, whatever, everything's working out for me. I'm not gonna question it. But as it goes on, it's so very very evident that the wish did work and that Nikki is being like suppressed by whatever is going on, and not at literally at no point does he ever really like want to try to fix it.
And even when they tell him the only way to undo the wish is when you die, he's so self-absorbed. He might be a quiet guy, but he's so self-absorbed that he's like, you know what, I ain't dying for this shit.
Right.
Like, I'd
Right.
rather
Well,
just yeah.
he makes that phone call. He makes the phone call, and the first thing he said, and they're like, "You want to cancel a wish?" And he's like, "Nah." He's like, "Is there any way to just like change this a little bit? Like everything's fine." It's like, dude, and especially after he hears like the real Nikki like screaming on the phone, it's like you're a whole nother level of like fucked up if
Yeah.
you hear that and
Yeah.
you're immediately like, "Nah, everything's chill. Could we just change this a little bit?"
I feel like that's when I knew he was a villain. The story itself of her, being trapped and basically having to subject, I guess, to a man. It's obviously it speaks a lot. It reflects a lot in society. Um, so that was actually pretty smart writing when it came to that. I have another redditor here She says, I was expecting something spectacular with all the hype for it, and it just didn't live up to it. I didn't find it scary, just creepy, which, to be honest, it was. And then she continues, honestly, the whole thing felt rushed, and there wasn't enough world building before things go off the rails. No characters to root for. I just wasn't invested. This is the second movie that people hype up in the last couple of years that I just didn't care much for, but I might be asking for too much. I want more compelling storyline, not just unnerving weirdness. I somewhat agree with that because, again, it was pretty weird. I get that. It was a little unnerving. But when we have characters or horror icons like Michael Myers, Samara, the gay one, the Babadook, and then the smiling people from Smile, which someone wrote about that. I'll read that in a bit. What do you think makes Nikki, from those that I mentioned, why do you think that would make her such an instantly memorable character or a horror icon at this point?
I think, to be honest, I'm a firm believer in speaking about Michael Myers. I'm a firm believer in the less you know about something, the scarier it is. And I think because the parameters of the One Wish Willow are so uncertain and nobody exactly knows what exactly happened. Did the wish just work? Is there like an entity inside of her? Is this and that? I know Cory Barker has I believe he said some stuff on different podcasts where he doesn't, it's not like really an entity, it's just the fact that the wish just didn't work in his favor. But the fact that when you're watching the movie, you don't fully understand what is going on. It's like, everything seems, perfect at first, but then little by little, you start seeing all these things with Nikki that just aren't right. Like she does things that you're like, okay, that was really strange. That was really weird. Like I feel like that aspect of it makes it scary. And I think the type of horror that is in this movie is definitely not for everyone. I know quite a bit of people who like they like more, I don't want to say action packed per se, but they like more like direct horror. I don't know what I would call it, but like this is a lot more subtle. It's the uncanniness of her slowly devolving, and I think that aspect of not knowing what is going on, is she possessed, like what is happening, that aspect of it is what makes it scary for some people.
I wish I would have known a little bit more about Nikki because, we get a little bit sentimental with Sarah, and the spoils are all over Instagram now, and everywhere you look, you get the GIF. So we feel for that. We feel for her because she finally has her life together, or something is happening in her life, and then you take it away from us as the viewer of the high hopes. And when we were talking about Bear being so egocentric, because it's just ego at this point, or selfishness, and you have this person who she finally tells you, oh, like, I like you, and now you're trying to see how can you make this work with this person when you have this other one over here going crazy. I wish I would have known a little bit of Nikki, because we get the father part that might be true, might not be true. We don't know what her family situation is too well, her goals, her, because then it's like, oh, well, she wanted to do this and now she's trapped, or like you said, might be possessed. We don't know. They keep that very vague, which I like, because it might be some kind of, I don't know, some alien shit or something, because somebody picked up the phone, and you're not going to have the devil like, yeah, hello. Yeah, I just sent one of my demons over. That's not how possessions work. And the
Right.
fact that you have her screaming in the background somewhere in this, uh, not universe, but astral plane, the real one is stuck. And you just made a call to somewhere, and there's realness to it, but I feel like that's the only thing that I wish we would have known just a little bit more on Nikki. I have another Redditor, I have a few here, who said it's decent, but it has been latched onto by TikTokers, which has cemented it as a current trend. I'm glad to see it's doing well, but people saying it's the scariest movie they've ever seen have really blown it out of proportion. This kind of cuts into what I wanted to talk about, the movie being popular because of TikTok. Don't spoil it because we want to go see it. The memes, like you mentioned, the fan theories, like I just said, is this another realm? He's gonna come out with a new movie, Anything But Ghost, which the premise sounds amazing. I
Yeah.
want to go see that
With
one.
Aaron Paul and all. Oh,
Yeah, it has a great
absolutely.
cast. Yeah, it has
Yep.
a great cast, and he said he was gonna somehow link it to this universe. And I hate when people use that. It's like using immersive for everything. I'm like, stop with the immersive, stop with the universe. Just create the movie and let us do the links. Like, I still think Dewey is alive. I'm gonna die on that hill. There's no body. There's Dewey's still
I,
alive. Same thing with
I
Scarlet Witch.
I agree with you. And if I really believe he's dead, it makes me angry. So I'm not going to do
For
that.
real. I'm like, if I don't see a body, I'm sorry, they're still alive. Scarlet Witch
Yeah.
and Dewey, they're both still alive. And prove me wrong. You had the fan theories. When I really like a movie, I like to theorize about the film, especially when you have something this popular, this obsession with obsession now going on. You want to talk to people and create your own fan theories. And the clips, everything is so shareable. And does the mystery sell the movie better than the trailers? It kind of does, because The Mandalorian was just a cute movie. It was all about Baby Yoda. And this one, you only had the trailer. Well, the promo was a $700,000 film making bank. Every promo you saw is making bank, and you're like, but can you give me a trailer for the movie, another additional teaser or something? Do you think that a lot of the drive has been mostly because of social media? You mentioned the memes, but the promo, do you think it relied as well more on social media? What do you think the production itself, what do you think they did necessarily to make this one uh more, blow up the way that it did?
So one thing that I think they did very well is I don't believe, if I'm remembering correctly, in the trailers for the movie, I don't believe they gave a ton of way, which is a bonus on their end, because you want to almost be like curious of like what's happening going into a movie. So I think they did good with that. I also think they did a very good job of first of all, they released, I think it was a couple weeks before the movie came out, they released the clip of Nikki and Bear when they were out to dinner, and he like kind of like confronts her, and she does the whole like no no no, like that whole meme. That was a very good clip, because it's a very memeable clip. Very good clip of the film to release before the movie, because I was seeing memes before the movie even came out about like, you ask somebody to do this and then it's Nikki doing her whole thing. So like that was a very smart decision. Also, the fact that they released or were releasing real life One Wish Willows with like an actual One Wish Willow website and doing all that, I think that helped a lot as well. And I'm saying that partly
I know
because
you got one.
I have 3 One Wish Willows. I do think that played a part in it, because it just, like I said, it kind of brings everything together and makes you feel like it's an experience that you need to like go see. Like, and on top of that, I mean, I think they did a very good job of getting the word out that this movie was going to release, because, especially on, Instagram, I'm on there all the time, especially on there, I constantly was seeing like advertisements for Obsession
Yeah.
constantly. So I think that definitely helped, because to be completely honest, from the first trailer, and the fact, I'll be honest too, like the Cory Barker and what's the other gentleman's name? His partner, or his like the guy who's always doing videos with him.
um Cooper
Yeah,
Tomlinson. Yeah.
Cooper Tomlinson and Cory Barker do comedy skits, which
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of them before I even knew about Obsession. I've seen their comedy skits. So like when I saw them, that they were making a movie, that they were doing this, I was like all in immediately. I was just like, all right, I'm going to go check this movie out. But I definitely think they did a very good job getting it out there that the movie was coming out, building, the One Wish Willow is genius, because on top of that, I mean, it literally sold out almost immediately.
Yeah.
I had to like almost fight for my life to try to get one the second time they dropped them.
Yeah, I won one of those. I won one of those. I went to a spooky bookstore in Brooklyn called The Twisted Spine. Check it out if you love horror, especially like the store is just beautiful. But I went and they had the candle from Obsession. It was $32, and Night Owl is literally right next door. And I've been going to Night Owl for a year now, and I didn't visit Twisted Spine because I thought it was a little further up. And no, it's like literally two buildings right next to it. And I was like, I would have been broke a long time ago. So thank God for that. But they have the candle from Obsession. I might have to go back, grab it because it smells so good. They had an event at Twisted Spine for Obsession, and everybody that sold out in minutes. They were literally basically live, updating on Instagram, like, this is how many we have. Don't worry, we're gonna get more. And oh, sorry, we're sold out again. Come back tomorrow. We're gonna try to get more. And this is a very small independent bookstore in Brooklyn.
Yep.
And everything was being sold out. So this was a major event that, in a way, it also kind of supported small businesses. And I love the fact that physical media or just films are also supporting bookstores, which, again, for those who are new to physical media, newsflash, books are also physical media. So one physical media supporting another physical media, that was just, chef's kiss. And this very unknown little bookstore, we're just getting all this popular, this foot traffic because of the event they created for this film. I want to read the last Redditor because it's going to go a little bit into the next topic. But he says that the film is pretty derivative, amusing at times, but I definitely don't understand the hype. The internet doing its thing, I suppose. Lead actress was great. Dialogue got on my nerves, which I found to be the case with Barker's short films too. When can we stop with the creepy smiling face shtick? I agree. And then he continues, I think if the film hadn't blown up, I'd probably go a little easier on it, but it's hard to be somewhat critical when it's making money hand over fist. I'm actually shocked that the target audience endured the first 20 to 30 minutes. I agree on that part, which was kind of a slog. But again, I'm finding I don't care much of the dialogue in Baker's other shorts, so it's probably a personal problem. I agree to a certain extent with that comment because I did have the same thing with Weapons. It was that 40-minute before Amy comes out that I'm like, can we please stop with the back and forth? I feel like this would have worked better with a straight line, or just go with the crackhead. He was the best character in that film besides Amy. This police guy, I hate it. She is getting on my last nerve, and this guy just wants to kill somebody. So it's like, can we just focus on the crackhead, please?
Yeah.
But there's some movies that become events, like this one, and there's some that just kind of fizzle out. They're still part of our horror culture, but some of the ones that I kind of compared to, and one of them is very divisive, which is Long Legs. But Talk to Me and Barbarian. I haven't been able to see Barbarian. I actually pre-ordered the 4K because that's one that has not come out on 4K, and that's gonna sell out. That's gonna sell out. Hands down, that's gonna sell out.
I mean, it's never had a physical media release at all.
It never.
Yep.
So it's like, no, the fact that now it's coming out, that's gonna be a hit of a disc. But I could not stop thinking about, Long Legs, Talk to Me, and Barbarian. How they were so, people who don't watch horror were recommending Barbarian to me. So do you think this one falls on that mold? Or do you think that because of the success this one has had compared to those, this one is like on another level? Or will you compare with at least those three?
I mean, I think in a way they all kind of fall into the same category in a way. In certain ways, the thing that's always going to make Obsession, whether people like it or not, the thing that's always going to keep Obsession at the top of that list is the fact that the success that it has seen is beyond what even I think probably some of those movies did put together. So it's like, because of the success and because of the, like you said, how, horror culture, because of the the impact that it's had on horror culture, even just this summer. Like it's absolutely, for the first half of the summer at least. I mean, this is all anybody's ever talked about the entire summer. So I do think because of that, it's always going to be like a step above those movies in a way. But I do think they all fall into a similar realm of movie, because I do think all those movies are unique and original in their own ways. Barbarian, Long Legs. What's the other one you mentioned?
Talk to Me, Barbarian, and Long
Oh,
Legs.
Talk to Me. But all three of those were definitely not like run of the mill horror movies. They were unique in their own way. So I do think they all go together in that aspect. But I just think Obsession has just done something that those other movies could not.
Yeah, I feel like this is the rise again because they've always been here. I think there's more indie horror than probably any other genre that comes into movie theaters. But I feel like it's probably the rise of indie horror, original horror, and auteur horror. So, you have these guys who have a certain style on YouTube becoming popular for what they do. We have Martin Scorsese doing his films, and we all know what a Martin Scorsese film looks like. But sometimes when it comes to horror, we ever since Wes Craven or Carpenter, we know their style, and I don't feel that we've had, at least for me, I don't follow other horror directors as other people do, but I feel like for me, like there haven't been that many out there that you're like, okay, we're probably gonna be in good hands for a while, given that they don't, get overhyped or in too much into their heads. For this, because of that, because of these new directors that are coming out, and obviously you're gonna have Hollywood trying to reprice, trying to redo, repackage the same success this one had into probably any other slop they put out. What do you think makes a horror film successful today? At least 3 points that you think really stand out in a successful horror film.
One, you have to make sure people know that your movie is coming out. Like when you make a horror movie, I think you have to make sure people know that it's coming out. I think you have to make sure that, I would say make sure that the horror movie is compelling in some sort of way, whether that be straight out like scary or like people describe Obsession as creepy. Like you need to have whatever aspect of horror that you're going for, you need to really hone in on that. And then I think that you need, like, again, I do think social media plays a huge impact now. So you need to have whatever campaign you're doing for the movie. I feel like you need to try to weave that into social media some way, because even if because you can have a really good movie, but if it doesn't pick up steam or doesn't catch, like Obsession did, you're not going to end up with Obsession money, even if you do have a good movie.
True. I feel like now the repeated viewing in cinemas is probably going to be a standard if the film is successful or not. Because again, you saw it twice. I didn't have a chance to see it twice. I told you, I mentioned that I wanted to go see it at the AMC on 42nd because now they have this XL screenings and Obsession is in one of them. The fact that they have that on XL and they have about 8 showings a day is still playing, which is because people are going to see it over and over. The marketing, I don't think it was strong. We did the marketing, I guess, for them. And you have the fan discussion. That's where now I feel like the success comes down to now. It's just fan discussion.
Yeah. And I do think, though, to kind of compare it between two movies that came out this year, when you take Undertone versus Obsession, I had multiple people that I talked to. They had, when Undertone was coming out, they had no idea what Undertone was, that it was coming out. Same thing with like a movie like Passengers. There was multiple people that didn't know Passengers was coming out or what that was. But Obsession, before the movie even came out, it seemed like those same people that I'm around, that I talk to a lot, they knew about Obsession. They didn't know about like Undertone as much. They didn't know about Passenger. So Obsession did something, whether it's the online marketing, whether it's the commercials, they did something that alerted more people than some other horror films that have come out. And then, like you said, if you have a good film and you market it decent enough to where you get enough, butts in seats the first weekend, if your movie's good and then people say it's good and talk about it online, you have traction and you'll keep going. I mean, if Obsession was hard, if Obsession was absolutely horrendous, it would have been dead after the first weekend. Nobody would have talked about it. It would have completely died off. Second weekend would have definitely not been double the amount, or I think it was like double the amount of people.
Do you think the hype behind the film is deserved?
I do. I think it's deserved in the sense that I think for what they had, I think Cory Barker like I said, I personally am a very big fan of subtle horror, like tension building, atmosphere. I like that a lot. So in my opinion, for what they had to work with, they made a ridiculously good horror movie for $750,000. And it was, of course I watch tons of horror movies a year. I have not really had, like, when I got done, like the scene at the end of Obsession, I also like horror movies that like stick with you. And at the end of Obsession, when all the shit goes down, and then it's just like the real Nikki who snapped back, and she's like just weeping, just sobbing, while she's sitting there looking at basically what she did without, under the One Wish Willow. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of like flips around to the credits. And as the credits are rolling, you just continue to hear her like cry, like this like really haunting cry. Like that type of stuff like sticks with me. And when they stuck the ending, in my opinion, I think they stuck the ending very well. When they did something like that, I was like, I've seen a good amount of horror movies, and the feeling I got at the end of that movie, I haven't got from like, I don't know, barely any movies really that I've seen in the past couple years.
Let's do a quick obsession meter to wrap the obsession talk. I want to know from 1 to 10. I'm going to throw out a few bullet points. I'm going to give out my numbers as well. I'm not going to let you take all the heat if you give a bad one. But the obsession meter, atmosphere, 1 to 10.
Atmosphere, I would say a 9.
I was going to say 8. I wish the sound design would have been a little bit as good as the lighting and the score. The villain, 1 to 10.
Okay, so not saying who it is, but whoever it is, I would say the villain's probably 7.5.
I would say that for me, who I think the villain in this film is, I have to say a 9.
Okay.
It really pissed me off, and a villain usually has to piss you off enough or entertain you. Ghostface entertains you as a villain. Others have to really piss you off. Rewatchability. I mean, for me, this is a 9 because people have seen it 4 times already.
I think rewatchability would probably fall somewhere between 7.5 and an 8. I think it's rewatchable. I mean, I went to the movies and saw it twice, but it's one of those ones where I don't think I'm going to watch this like every couple months. I think I'm going to watch it like when I get the 4K, I'll watch the 4K. Then I probably won't watch it again until, honestly, probably until like next like February. It's like I feel like Valentine's Day is a good time to rewatch it again.
Well, and now you know where to get the candle at the Twisted Spine. Yep. The scares. For me here, the scares, I would say a 7 at most.
Yeah. I would say scares, I would say probably a 7. I think a 7 sounds fair because like we talked about before, I don't think the film is like this in-your-face scary film. The only scene that really, like, I guess you could say scared or like jump scared me was the car scene. But I kind of knew something was going to happen. I just didn't know exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah. The ending. To me, the ending, I would say is a close 8. Because like you said, how it ends, and then you can just keep hearing it over and over. is such a haunting, you're leaving the theater. If you walk out as soon as the credits hits, you're still hearing that, horrible sound behind you. So I would say the ending for me was a bit of an 8.
Yeah, I would say I'd give the ending probably like a 9 or a 10. I'd give the ending because like big problem with a lot of movies is sometimes you get an awesome movie all the way through, but then the ending happens and you're kind of like, oh dude, that kind of ruined it a little bit. I almost feel like this ending couldn't have been better, like because you got all aspects of it. You got the fact that like Bear was struggling with the choice of like finally being like, I gotta end this, like I gotta make that choice. But then, I like the fact that it shows you, like, of course he tries to shoot himself or whatever. That doesn't work out. He doesn't go through with it. But then he takes the pills and you think, oh, he did it. He's gonna die. But if it wasn't for the fact of Nikki cracking that one wish willow, he was getting ready to try to throw those pills back up. Like going back to what you said about him being very self-absorbed. You know what I mean? Like even at the end when he like ruined everybody, he ruined all his friends, dead, gone. He couldn't do it to save Nikki. Even though he claims that he loves her, he couldn't do it to save her. So like the whole ending, the way it worked out was amazing in my opinion.
What about the collector appeal? For me, this is a hard 10 because, like I said, you have the One Wish Willow. I want that candle. There's a lot of sweaters out there and shirts that look amazing, and I want a lot of apparel. When it comes to the 4K coming out, it's probably the most basic one that's coming out right now, but I know there's going to be more versions of it, more editions of it, and
Right.
that is going to be bring it on, one right after another. And I think the collector appeal of this movie is a hard 10 for me.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that as well. I think for me, it's going to be one that I continue to collect as long as they come out with good versions. Like, if they come out with a cool looking steelbook, I'm getting it. But I'm really hoping now. I feel like if anybody's going to get the rights to the movie to put it out, maybe Arrow Video, which I would be fine with. If Arrow gets it, that's awesome. My personal favorite is Second Sight. I don't know if they're going to get it, but to be honest, if Second Sight would come out with something for Obsession, I mean, that's a day one. That's not even I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just handing them my wallet.
Yeah, I think Second Sight, I mean, especially the fact that they have Follow Me. It follows. Follow me, yes. Well, don't follow me, but it follows. And Talk to Me.
Yes.
So they have these two cult classics, which leads into my last question. Does this have the chance to become a cult classic? That's a 9 for me because I'm still questioning how this generation is gonna stick to the movie long after it's gone out of theaters.
Right. I think that's also probably pretty fair. I'd say an 8.5 or a 9 because I do think that the themes of this movie resonate with the newer generations very well, which is part of the reason it did so well. But as time goes on, I don't know how well it's going to be perceived by the next generations. Like, are they going to look at this movie and kind of like, I mean, I wasn't around when Halloween came out, but I absolutely love Halloween. Are the younger people, when this movie is 30 years down the road, are they going to look back with that kind of mindset on Obsession? I don't know.
I agree. I still have my doubts how they're going to keep this movie alive, at least that unknown generation when it comes to physical media. So every few years, a horror movie comes out of nowhere and dominates the conversation. And can another film recreate that success? Or was just this lightning in a bottle? Continuing on the obsession for Obsession, we're going to cut to a segment where I want to spotlight one of the biggest franchises that probably has had us obsessed for almost 30 years. And that is one of my favorite horror movies, one of the biggest cult classic, and that is Scream.
The physical cut presents Scream at 30.
John, I want to talk to you about a little bit about Scream. I want to ask collectors, I want to ask horror fans, what does Scream mean to you as a horror collector or as a horror fan?
I mean, Scream's always going to be such an impactful film within the horror ethos. I mean, to one aspect of Scream, the fact that it's lasted from the 90s all the way till now with basically the same people. I feel like that 90s horror is perfected in that first movie. Like that first Scream movie is like, I don't know if you can get better than that, especially between the actors. I mean, Matthew Lillard's always been one of my favorite actors, whether it's him in like horror or whether it's him in comedy, because Without a Paddle is one of my favorite comedy films. I do think for what it means to me, I would say it's just a very impactful, influential 90 films that, I mean, the cascade effect from that original trilogy basically is going to go on for probably generations. Like Scream is a everlasting horror franchise. And the fact that the killer isn't one central person, the killer can be anyone pretty much, just leads it to have the legs that it's had in the past like 30 years.
Why do you think that this film, at least the original one, we're talking about the original one here, even though you're good to share love for all the other ones, including Seven, but why do you think this film has lasted for over 30 years?
I think just like how Obsession was lightning in a bottle, I think the original Scream movie was lightning in a bottle in a way. It was one of those things, it hit at the exact right time. I feel like, I don't want to say horror was in a slump, but I feel like at that time when it hit, it was just such an impactful horror commentary. Like it was such like a commentary on the horror franchises or the horror genre as a whole. And I just think it was such a pivotal movie at that time that it just hits. Like even till today. And everybody always wants to choose the original movie in a franchise as like their favorite. But like I genuinely believe if you watch all these movies, there's no denying that first one is the best one. Like it has the perfect formula for what a Scream movie is. And that's why I honestly think like you have good Scream movies after that, but I don't think you'll ever reach that point anymore because it's been done. It's been perfected.
I actually also asked Redditors about this, like what does Scream mean to them? And I got a few good responses here that I'm going to read throughout. This one, Alan, he wrote, seeing Scream 1996 in theaters as a young teen and not at all expecting the possibilities of there being two killers, spoiler alert, that just hadn't entered my mind as a possibility. Haha. Little did I know that that would be a staple of the series. He continues with, and the excitement of seeing it go from flop, which is true, on opening weekend to a huge hit the weekend right after that, similar to how Obsession just kept making crazy amounts of cash, except it never flopped. It was a successful from the start. I don't think when he mentioned Obsession, I kind of wanted to bring that up because we were just talking about it. I don't think Obsession has proven to be a flop. Obviously, like Scream is still making money 30 years later. I'm a big Scream fan. I love a good writing. Some people are like, oh, horror doesn't need to have good writing. Okay, well, for you. For me, it kind of does. I think Kevin Williamson, he was probably the best horror writer of those 4 years, I guess, 95 through, or it came out in 96, but from like 95 all the way to probably 2000, he was probably the most successful writer when it came to horror during that time. And I feel like his writing, that's probably one of the reasons this film has lasted so long. And I feel like that will never leave my top 4 ever because it is so well done. It's a horror movie, but it's cinematic. It has great sound, it has great dialogue, it has everything a movie should have. Now, for me, the way that Scream entered my life, and I spoke about that, was finding a VHS. I know other people have found Scream different ways. What was your first interaction with Scream?
My first interaction with Scream, I mean, to be honest, I was probably so young. I mean, I started watching horror movies when I was like 5 years old, which probably isn't great for a 5-year-old. But the first couple like horror movies that I watched, I know for a fact, are definitely Halloween. And I'm pretty sure the Blair Witch and Scream were like the two follow-ups to the Halloween franchise. So I watched Scream when I was very young. So most likely it was on a VHS tape that was got from Blockbuster. Because when I was younger, I had a couple, VHS tapes and a couple things like Halloween 1 and 2 I had on VHS, like I owned them. But a lot of the other horror movies that I watched were like, I remember like it would be like a Friday or a weekend, and like me and my parents would go to like Blockbuster and rent movies and do that whole thing. So I'm pretty sure it probably stemmed from watching it from a Blockbuster rental. But yeah, I mean, that was probably like my first experience with Scream is renting it from like a Blockbuster and watching it when I was super young. And it's again, loving the horror genre even as a kid, slashers have always been my favorite. I mean, you watch that movie for the first time and it sucks that you can only watch it for the first time one time, because not knowing who the killer is and trying to figure out who the killer is and stuff like that is also what I think like really makes that movie what it is when you watch that for the first time. It's trying to figure out who did it. Who is the killer? Like, you have the scene where you think Billy is the killer, but then, he ends up getting caught and then she still gets the phone call. So it's like, then you're like, oh no, it can't be him. Well,
I have another one here. He asked me personally to read it, even though I wanted him to send me an audio of this. And this is his experience of Scream. He said, I have a couple of memories watching the first movie to get prepared for five back in. Oh, okay. Five. I thought he was running a 5K. My bad. So preparing for five, the fifth film in 2022. And I fell in love with the franchise. And my second favorite memory is actually seeing Scream 7 in theaters. It was the best theater experience I've ever had, seeing the audience clapping and seeing the theater decorated with Ghostface merch and seeing little kids in Ghostface masks made my day. And that's why Scream 7 will have a special place in my heart. I know I have, my reservations with Scream 7. But, some people might love it. I personally not. But when you have that kind of experience, it does make the franchise even more special because everyone is discovering Scream at their own time. I had another guy comment, and I thought I took a screenshot of that. And he told me that one of his best memories of watching Scream was renting the VHS with his best friend. And, they would burn that VHS. And trust me, I know what that is because, I burned basically my first VHS of Scream. And him and his best friend would just burn it through and then just stop it, repeat, stop it, repeat. And it's still a memory for him because his best friend passed away. They're still pretty young. His best friend passed away a few years ago, and he still holds that memory of them just watching the same VHS over and over and over. And, I told him that that's even more powerful than, just criticizing or having an opinion on the movie. It's just like now this movie is part of your childhood and your adulthood because, you lost your friend, but you still have that memory. There's a lot of different Screams, even though we're celebrating the anniversary of the 30th. But from all these Screams, which one has been your favorite Ghostface?
I'll put it to you this way. Number one is always going to have my favorites, again, because Matthew Lillard is, I just love him as an actor. And to be honest, he plays such a nutty, psychotic role in that. You know what I mean? The other one would probably be Scream 4, in my honest opinion.
I agree.
I again, Scream 2, I like it. Scream 3, I like it. 5 and 6, I just can't get behind. Like ever since 5, not that I thought 5 was bad. I actually like Scream 5 and I like Scream 6. But ever since like 5 and 6 and on, the killer reveals, I feel like they just keep getting worse.
Yeah.
Like every movie, it just keeps getting worse. And I'm like, okay, now we're really we're really struggling here. But
Yeah.
I think 4 was a pretty solid, to be honest, like 4 was pretty solid.
I agree.
And
I kind of had my suspicions on one of them, you know, the one who wants to be the sole survivor. But
right,
the other one did take me by surprise. The accomplice,
right.
that one took me by surprise. But like you said, they get so messy lately with the reveals that up to the point that 7 was just a joke when it came
I
to
know.
reveals. It's like,
7 was fun.
wait, what? Like, who are you? Like, at this point, it's like, who are you?
Yeah, it's getting to the point where it's like strangers. You're
Yeah.
like, dude, I haven't seen you the whole movie. What are you doing here?
At one point, it's going to be the cameraman. Well, yeah, it's like, oh, it's the cameraman. It's like, sometimes when you're watching Scooby-Doo and you're like, but wait, that person was not in the episode the entire time. It's the guy
Right.
from the museum. Oh, the guy that you saw one time in the background. So I feel like that's how 7 felt. It felt very Scooby-Doo.
It was like, I mean, if you go from 5 to 7, it is a progressive downward spiral.
Yeah.
It is a progressive downward spiral. I was hoping they could pull the plane up and change trajectory, but unfortunately it just got worse.
Now I remember who the 6th one were. There were so many. I'm like, I feel like they had to add more people every time. I'm like, you went from 3 on the 6th. And how many did the 7 have? Was it also 3 or 4?
7 was 3. 7 was
Oh,
3.
okay, 3. It's just I was so confused by the end. I had no idea what was happening.
I know. It's a sad reality, but unfortunately they just couldn't get it.
For someone who has never seen Scream, what will you tell them?
When I tell them about Scream, I mean, I would say watch the first 3 and then take your time. That's what I would tell them.
And that
watch
3
the first 3 and take your time.
And that 3 is a hidden gem. I don't care what people say. 3 for me is such an underrated Scream movie. And it's because, yeah, you only got one killer, but I feel like the story is easier to follow. It's a little bit more dramatic. You have a lot of family drama in that film. So I feel like
Right.
that's why Scream 3 works differently for me, because it's a total different perspective of, okay, where can we take this film? Not space, please, not space. But somehow they're apparently going to London in the 8th, which, hey, as long as he has an accent, I'm fine. Just give him a British accent.
No. That would be absolutely wild. I tell you what, if Scream ever goes to space, I'm done watching them.
I mean,
I'm done doing it. I've watched it with Jason. That's good enough. Okay.
but I feel like in London, you have to give the guy an accent. Maybe, he just sits down with a cup of tea and plans his next kill, but it has to be culturally appropriate.
If they're going to London, I want to know who the hell is Ghostface going after? Like, who is the main character? Is it Sydney? Is Sydney coming back again? Is she in London now? I don't know. I tell you, it pains me. It pains me because 7 was an opportunity to fix course and put yourself back on solid ground for another couple sequels. And they really shit the bed. Like, I can't even believe how much I feel like they shit the bed on Scream 7. But oh well.
They did. But John, thank you so much for talking about Obsession with me. It's a film everybody has been obsessed over, and I really wanted to get my word out there and know your perspective on that, because there was a lot to say. And I also thank you for helping me kick start this tribute that I want to do as a Scream fan for this amazing movie, this cult classic that has been haunting me for my entire life. Whether you love it or not, you have to admit this is probably one of those horror films that has been a staple, especially during this past 25 to 30 years in horror. A lot of people try to recreate Scream. A lot of people try to recreate the horror that Scream represents, but you're not Wes Craven, and it's not going to happen. He's still my favorite horror director. That's why I really wanted to do this tribute throughout the year. I want to kickstart it with you because I know you're a good horror fan. You don't have a biased opinion. I have a biased opinion on Scream. I know you're a Halloween fan. If we ever do a Halloween, 50th anniversary, is it?
Yeah,
you can host that. You can host that. But I really thank you for helping me kickstart this tribute for Scream. I'm going to be quoting, I'm going to have some audios from collectors, film lovers, horror lovers throughout the year. And I'm going to wrap it up in December with an episode, which is just all the quotes, all the audios, and hopefully some of the videos from these horror collectors, this everybody who gets in touch with me, who wants to send me stuff about Scream. You're welcome to do so. You can send it to my Instagram, or you can go to krpotlab.com. You can also send me voicemails there. What Scream means to you, I would love to know. And if you let me, I will play your audio here. It's much better than me quoting. But thank you so much, John. John, please let the people know where they can find you.
Absolutely. I am on Instagram. You can find me at Spooky Season 95. That is SPKY_SZN95. And on there, I basically just kind of share my collection and love for horror.
Awesome. Any horror, since we're talking about cult classics, before we go, any horror that you recommend to our listeners?
I would say watch the movie Intruder. I watched that recently, and I like that one a lot. So watch the movie Intruder.
I'm going to have to watch it because I heard about that movie and somebody said it was creepy as hell. But thank you so much, John, for being here with me today, taking a lot of your time. I know it's a hot day out, but if you're listening to this, hopefully you're in the AC. Thank you for listening to The Physical Cut. You can follow me at The Physical Cut Pod on Instagram. Or like I said, you can visit KRPODLAB, that's krpotlab.com. Send me messages, get in touch with me. Tell me what horror movies I should be watching, if I shouldn't be watching as much Scream as I do. But I thank you so much for joining us today. I will see you guys next time.